And then just going back to you guys, I love this league, man. I love it. It's one of the best leagues in the world, like I said, and I don't take it for granted. And I know a lot of us is getting ready for playoffs. And I always say this when I end it, but for real, let's enjoy the night, let's have some fun, and then we're gonna be back to business. Kendrick, I know you wanna bust my ass, and it's all love, but hey, let's enjoy the night. Drinks on me.
I can guarantee you the drinks were on the NBL and not Bryce Cotton, but he is now the six-time NBL MVP. Shout out to Booker T. Olgun, if you know who that is. This is the ESPN Aussie Hoops Hour podcast. Kane Pittman and Olgun, it's back together after a couple of weeks off, and we've got a stacked rundown. Olgun's looking a little sleepy because he was out until 5 a.m. at Crown, but he's here for the podcast. We're going to talk about those NBL Awards and what went down during the ceremony and potentially after as well. We're going to discuss the Ignite Cup and maybe some changes that we could make to bring this in-season tournament up a few levels next season. We have got a guest, Olgun. Miguel from ESPN Philippines is going to join us. FIBA window Boomers Philippines, returning back to that country for the first time since you know what went down, the big brawl. So we're going to find out what the reception is going to be for the Boomers and plenty more. Olgun, it is so nice to see you. I listened to the podcast and I was sad, man. I had so many takes and jabs I wanted to throw at you and I didn't get the opportunity to do so. So it is very nice to see you.
Good to see you. I'm a bit sleepy. It was good to have Ryan the last couple of weeks. I've always said we have to turn this into a 3-man pod sometimes and bring him in. But it was last night, the awards night, very fun. It got even more enjoyable and a bit more crazy after the awards finished. So we'll get into that. I'm excited to get stuck in because the tightest race I've ever seen. When they announced the votes, honestly, I was in total shock.
Unbelievable stuff. Let's get straight to the MVP. So Bryce Cotton, as I mentioned off the top, a 6-time NBL MVP now. He's a 9-time scoring champ, a 9-time first team All-NBL player. So the resume is just out of this world. The legend continues to grow. The greatness of Bryce Cotton continues to grow. But there was only 2 votes in it, Olgun. And I think a big question out of this is actually how the votes are tallied and how they're calculated and what the formula is. What is it? Because this was, some conversations around this being potentially a tie. I didn't like that unless it was legit. So how do they do this?
So this is something that Kendrick was disappointed with, and he expressed his frustrations afterward, right? As soon as the awards night finished, everyone sort of collected together in the lobby, the foyer area at the Crown. And Kendrick was pretty open that he was disappointed in the result. He wanted to win the MVP, and he called out the voting situation, which is that look, you got 10 teams, the head coach and the captain, they supply a vote for MVP, right? So they do a 5-4-3-2-1. I'm a member of the 5-person panel that voted. We supplied our 5-4-3-2-1, and it's just the total votes that get counted. And at the end of this one, Bryce finished with 96 total votes. Kendrick Davis finished with 94 total votes. Unbelievably close. Christian Doolittle, Nathan Sobey tied for third, both on 59 votes. I think that's like a little bit off too. But look, that's how the vote works. And the thing that Kendrick was upset with or took issue with was the fact that, Bryce has been in the league for 9 years. So in a race that's, 50-50 or feels 50-50, where are people going to swing? Are people going to swing toward the guy that they know? Right? Previous relationships, do they come into it? It's something I mentioned last week that, relationships, politics, all of these things were going to come into play. And the perfect example of that, Kane, is All-NBL first team. Because Bryce Cotton finished with 54 votes. That was the maximum amount of votes that you can get. Kendrick Davis finished with 52 votes. That means that there were 2 voters out there who put Kendrick Davis in their All-NBL second team. Now, 2 voters also put Nathan Sobey in their All-NBL second team. Both, I think, are wild things to do. I think that is an unserious ballot that you cast if you put one of those 2 guys or both of those guys in your All-NBL second team, right? And so that's where Davis took issue with the vote, and we try to urge him to sort of, take a chill pill and just focus on the championship series or the finals that are coming up. But he was really intent on voicing his frustrations. He did it publicly. He went on an Instagram Live, and he expressed a little bit at the finals launch as well.
Do you think he has a case then? You've obviously been around this for a long time. I haven't seen, as far as I can remember, when it comes to nominations for the MVP, that you would have 3 players. And this year it was like, well, there's only 2 guys, so let's just not worry about it. When you were there and you're hearing him and you're seeing him, were you like, yeah, this is fair enough, or this was way over the top?
But what his reaction to it?
Yeah.
His reaction to it was quite excessive, and I'll say that, and I've said that to him as well. The actual outcome, Bryce Cotton winning. A lot of us said this was in effect a 50-50 race, and it's whatever your sensibility is what swings your vote. Right? If you think, hey, there's a guy who's on a team that is far and away the best team in the league, in the Sydney Kings, hey, Kendrick gets your vote. If you think, hey, take this guy off that team and they're worse, hey, Bryce Cotton probably gets that vote. Does Bryce Cotton get the benefit of the doubt because every time he's put up a season like this, he has won the MVP award? He probably got the benefit of the doubt there. He probably has goodwill around the league because he's been around for so long and he's been a good ambassador for the league. So all of that stuff matters too. The Kendrick Davis argument is, hey, what more can I do? I'm on the team that is far and away the best in the league. I put up really great counting stats. Didn't play as many minutes as Bryce, but still put up good counting stats. Was largely efficient. The advanced metrics probably favor Kendrick, and he still couldn't win it. So, man, if a season like this can't beat Bryce, what can? That's the argument from Kendrick. Now, Ken, I was a vote. I had a vote, and I'm for making these votes transparent. So when you do put a Kendrick Davis in your second team, that you get called out for that, or you.
Well, that is the only way. Sorry to cut you off, but that is the only way for people that are voting to ensure that there is no shenanigans going on. Because let's be honest, there are probably some people in Adelaide and people with Kendrick Davis. It didn't end on great terms. We understand that part of that is probably the emotion of this, because he probably wants to stick it to Adelaide. Like, that would be human nature. So I don't want to turn this into Kendrick should have won it, because Bryce won it. There was always going to be someone unlucky. So I don't really feel bad. Like, it sucks for him, but there was always going to be one guy that played at an MVP standard and didn't get it. But you just hit the nail on the head. If people are voting, then their votes need to be public, because when something like that happens, that you don't have this man in your all NBL first team, that people can have their own opinions, Olgun. And I don't really say this, but that's just a wrong opinion, and everyone knows that. So that should be public, so we can all see if there's any reason why that would be the vote.
And I think if it was known that they would be public, I think people would vote more reasonably,
yes.
Right? And again, it's the fear of shame is probably a helpful thing there. Again, I'm okay. Like, I was on the panel. I'll say this: Kendrick got my 5 vote.
Mm-hmm.
Kendrick was my number 1 for MVP. Bryce was second. Now, I can make an argument for Kendrick as MVP, and I don't want to take away from Bryce Cotton, because there's a good argument that he was also the MVP.
Yeah.
Right? And again, that's why we call this a 50-50 race, and one factor was going to swing it one way or the other. So again, these are the arguments that are sort of coming from the Kendrick side. And I think more broadly, when you look at some of the other votes, especially those first team votes, there's probably a lot of value in making these votes public, just so we can hold people accountable. Because we don't want a situation where a team is trying to sabotage another and giving someone a single vote as opposed to a 3 or 4 or 5 vote, just so their guy can win. If they're going to do that, I think at the very least hold them accountable for it.
Yep, totally agree. And I will say this on Kendrick as we move on, that he's had such a fantastic season and has been such a leader and a great teammate for this Kings team, like Adelaide, that still has a big goal ahead of him. So I hope that, as the day goes on today, he's like, all right, I probably got a bit carried away. Then he knuckles down, because there is work to be done. And he's got to get back on the horse and not worry about this, and not let this become something bigger than it should be.
Look, the frustrations were clear last night. If you're on the casino floor, you could see it. This morning at the
many people were frustrated for different reasons on the casino floor.
This is very true. The story of my life. The finals media launch was this morning. We're recording this on a Tuesday morning. Kendrick was there, and he was way more subdued. He was way more reasonable, and with what he said and his take. So I think he just needed that night just to get it out of his system, and I think he's approaching it in a good way now. And like you said, and like I told Kendrick, I told him last night, hey, don't let this single thing that you're disappointed by affect what's been a really good season for you on and off the court, right? If you go and the answer to this is to go and win a championship and go and win Finals MVP. That is the correct answer to how to approach losing an MVP. And again, a very, very close race.
Yeah, awesome race. And Bryce, like, there's a great article from you on espn.com.au, and you had a couple of quotes there from Bryce. And one quote, and I'll paraphrase this, but I don't have it in front of me, but it stuck with me, and I wanted to bring it up, was his idea around the question now with Andrew Gaze and like where they sit. And he made the point that you can't take anything away from Gazy, you can't take anything away from me. And it did make me think that the first time that I really started working in TV with Andrew Gaze was around 2021. And I remember we had the conversation around everyone's had it, but is Bryce Cotton the best import of all time in the NBL? And in 2021, that was a conversation to be had. And if my memory serves me correctly, there was pushback from the old heads, Gazy and Copes, around Leroy Loggins and the longevity in the league, and longevity matters. But we had the same conversation earlier this year, and it wasn't about is he the best import. Is he a top 2 player guaranteed all time in the NBL? And the answer was unanimous yes. And now he adds MVP number 6. He could potentially add another title to this. He could potentially add another grand final MVP. So for his longevity, the accolades, the resume that continues to grow and does not look like it's slowing down. We had the Kendrick Davis conversation, but I wanted to just bring it back to your article and celebrating Bryce, and just truly how lucky we have been to have this guy playing in our league for a decade now, and a decade of dominance.
Yeah, 6-time MVP, 9-time scoring champ now. Again, I was fortunate to speak to Bryce right after he won it. And, he mentioned that not a lot of people come out from Tucson, Arizona, and achieve success in the way he has. So he was able to sort of look back at his upbringing and track his entire career, starting from when he was younger and getting out of Tucson and then achieving a lot of success. And so, look, he's, again, for as much as this was a tight race, there was both outcomes would have been justified. And so when you look at Bryce Cotton, the way he's produced this season, the way he's produced over the course of his entire time in the NBL, it is really, really impressive stuff. And when you're around these guys, you see how small they are. And for these guys to have this skill level, and it's not just Bryce, it's KD, it's Parker Jackson Cartwright. When you see the skill level of these guys, you think, why aren't they in the NBA? It's because they're smaller, right? And it's difficult for NBA teams to invest in those sorts of guys. So we get to bring them to our league, and we get to experience sort of their elite skill set for their size. And you have to be extra elite at the skill set to be extra elite at that size. So we're fortunate to be able to watch these guys every night. And Bryce Cotton is I think rightfully, he's the pinnacle of what we've seen. And
I think most people would be hoping for this if you're a neutral. Bryce Cotton, Kendrick Davis could potentially happen in a couple of weeks' time for the NBL title, which would be awesome. I want to push this ahead because we do have Miguel waiting for us to talk some FIBA hoops. I want to get to Ignite Cup first. But I am curious what the reaction was in the room for Brian Goorjian, now a 7-time Coach of the Year. But not just a 7-time Coach of the Year. He hasn't won the award since 2009, which coincidentally, maybe, was the last time he also won an NBL championship in this league. What did you sense from the room when he was given that award?
There's a lot of reverence around the Australian basketball community, quite rightly, and obviously for Brian Goorjian, and you can sense it in the room. There's a lot of respect for him, and you can see the way he approached, contentious press conferences over the course of the season. He attacked those press conferences with a level of nobility, right, as a statesman. And I think people around the league see that, right? He has every right to be the most arrogant guy in the room based on his resume. And he's just not. Also see that the bigger the box, the more confident he is that coach's challenge is going to be successful. But people, the thing that I think is important, like this sort of, that sort of emotion and passion after a win. The dude's 72 years old, turned 73 in a couple months. That emotion and passion, I think, is visceral. People see that. And the thing, I think I've mentioned this before on the podcast. I spoke with a player about this the other day. The fact that Brian Goorjian is the coach who is guiding the most modern style of basketball that we're seeing in the NBL right now, which is this sort of up and in, lots of wings, play really fast, shoot a lot of threes. Yeah, this is not necessarily shoot a lot of threes, but shoot enough threes. The fact that the 72-year-old is the guy who's been able to move with the times and stay super relevant and have success even now, that's I think that's the most impressive thing about what we're seeing from Brian Goorjian today.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think of two players when I think of what has made it a great coaching job this season. One of them is Kendrick Davis, as we've discussed, who's came in and clearly the respect, listening to Kendrick Davis talk about Brian Goorjian and, even tweeting after he won Coach of the Year and saying how much he loves him. And obviously they've built a strong relationship. The other player I think of is McWatch Maliwatch, Olgs, because he's been in the league for a couple of years now. I remember he had that huge dunk in NBL 1, and then he came to Melbourne United, and he was there for a little while. And he was kind of just on the periphery. He was playing a little bit, and then you have the ball qual injury, and it's like, okay, and obviously the credit goes to the player as well. But to coach a team that has had a lot of adversity along the season and just plug in a guy like that, and then he's played career best basketball and become an awesome player to watch, and not just an athlete, but a guy that can really cause disruption and take some big roles defensively. So the two guys, again, very different ends of the scale, but I think of those two guys, he's done a great job. Before we move on from this, I will say, if I had a vote, I love my man Goorj, but if I had a vote, I would have gone for Josh King. I think, again, this is one of those awards where anyone could have won it. Josh King, based on my preseason expectations of where that team was, when I compare the two rosters, I know the Phoenix have been largely healthy, but when I compare the two rosters, the identity, the DNA, the level of tenacity this team plays for the coach, I leant towards Josh King, but totally fine. Totally fine.
I'm with you as well. Coach of the year for me is generally outcome over expectations,
Right.
and the expectations for the Phoenix team were not very high. Goorj, again, this was similar to the MVP vote, where really, really close, tight race. What's the thing that's going to swing it? I think in the same way that probably goodwill around the league helped Bryce Cotton, along with his obviously great performance. Same with Brian Goorjian, probably has goodwill around the league. He's been around for so long. The other thing very quickly, and Josh King mentioned it in his press conference today, John Brown III in All-NBL first team. It's something that we've spoken about and we've we've lobbied for, but I think that's a really good step for the league. That instead of the hyper-productive guy, the guy who puts up big numbers, it's the guy who plays both ends. He doesn't put up crazy output, but when you see his impact on the floor, you see how important he is. I think he was one of the five best players this season. So I think it's a good step for the league that we are recognizing that sort of thing.
Yeah, that was cool. I think you nailed that All-NBL first team a few weeks back with Doolittle in that mix there as well. Before we move on from the awards, and the congrats to Flynn Cameron, who's been great, and my guy Sam Menega, who won the next gen, and everyone else that was in the All-NBL teams.
Angus Glover running away with 6-man.
Glover, yeah.
Noise lobbying unfortunately did not work. Ex-teammate Angus Glover takes it.
Interesting. Yeah, that was very interesting to see the voting for that one. So awesome night overall. One other guy I wanted to bring up, Olgun, was Evan from the NBL. Now, I was in... I haven't been able to bring it up for a couple of weeks. Now, I was in Los Angeles, so I'm not going to name names, for All-Star Weekend last weekend, and I was talking to someone from the NBL, and I want to make this clear. By my understanding, Evan is a man of great intelligence, integrity, and honor. But I was really bothered that he did something very tough this year. He dove in with the MVP rankings on Instagram. This is not an easy task. Ask Derek Rucker. There can be a lot of feedback that comes your way. And I've been mostly positive. I've asked some questions along the way. But when you dive in, you got to fully commit, Olgs. And when I got on the NBL Instagram last week, and I saw that after a whole year of pissing people off with these MVP rankings, my man had a tie on the last weekend. That is not good enough. He is better than that. And next year, you just got to dive in. You can't be sitting on the fence when you get to the final hurdle. So I was disappointed after a brilliant year. I thought he got scared at the end. And that's, to me, that wasn't good enough.
I do want to set the record straight. It is not just Evan at the NBL, and Evan is great, right?
You're the one that threw him in.
It's not just him. Evan's my guy, but it's not just him. He does a great job there. It is a collective who does that. And I'll say this: I heard from a little birdie that Evan had some frustrations with you because you were like, "Who's this Evan guy?" As though you haven't sat next to him multiple times at a game before. So I don't know where this disrespect has come from. Where again, we're gonna turn the ship here and show our appreciation for Evan, and we're gonna make sure that you remember him next time you sit next to him at a game, because from what I'm told, you've done that on multiple occasions. Let it be known.
That's unexpected. I'm not gonna lie. I wasn't expecting that one. I haven't been to be fair, I haven't been to an NBL game.
Now. You're in Bristol now.
No.
Okay. We get it.
No, I wish I could go to more NBL
Boy
games.
from Geelong is long gone, unfortunately.
I haven't been to an NBL game in the media seats for a couple of years, but so I apologize for that. Overall, we're big supporters. Just needed a definitive answer in that last hurdle. So anyway, a really fun night. I was jealous that I wasn't there. It's always fun. You you see and hear some crazy things. Another day that I was jealous to not be there was on the Gold Coast on the weekend with the Ignite Cup. The final was there, Olgun, and New Zealand, that's right, not in the playoffs, but they are the Ignite Cup champions. I loved the passion that we saw from New Zealand when they won. And both of these teams wanted to win. There was none of this, we're too cool for this. And I know that there's money on the line, but we can still see a scenario where it's like, this is, it doesn't matter too much to us. No, it mattered. It was for the team. You're winning something. That's what helps build this thing moving forward. So I thought it was awesome. I do have some changes, though, but I'll go to you first. I don't believe you were there, but what did you make of the final and the spectacle on the GC?
I was not there. What I noticed yesterday, though, at the awards night was the Breakers had a little pep in their step.
Yeah.
Parker Jackson Cartwright sort of strutting around the joint. Pettery Confident had a big smile on his face the whole time. Like they knew what they did, and it was genuinely a really enjoyable game. It was very offense heavy. The Adelaide 36ers could not stop the New Zealand Breakers, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But this Breakers team, when healthy, they on any given night they do have the firepower to go and do something like this. And I like the fact that they did treat this like a very real game, almost like a championship game that they wanted to win. They had Sam Menenga return. They had Kareem Lopez and Isaiah Brockington return. They had all their guys come back for this game, and man, it paid off. And man, I'm just happy for Alex McNaught, who got to. It seemed like he couldn't let go of that $300,000 check. He was the happiest of everyone. You look at him right there in the middle. Look at him, man. Naughty deserved this more than anybody. He is the heart and soul of the New Zealand Breakers, and has been for a while.
So, I think we asked the question earlier in the season. Now, what are the Breakers doing? What are they trying to be? What are they trying to build? Who are the guys that they're trying to bring in? So to see that level of commitment, and again, I understand there's a little bit of cash involved for these guys. That's totally fine. But you could tell that it was like, hey, these guys actually wanted to come back and play for each other. Like, do you really think, for Kareem Lopez, who's about to go to the NBA as a first-round draft pick, that whatever the 10K or what, it's not going to change his life. He's about to make a stack, but he came back from injury, played. Sam Menenga, the broken wrist, the injury that he had. These guys, it looked like they were building something, and I hope a bunch of those guys can come back next year. We'll see. Sam Menenga's probably going to earn himself, speaking of money, a stack of cash. So we'll see what it looks like. But it was nice to see those guys buy in. If I look at the Ignite Cup overall, very cool. We are in an era where people don't want to have fun and they want to immediately say, this isn't cool. We don't need it. Why are we doing this? It's something extra. It's something extra for the fans. I think it was a perfect result that a team not in the playoffs got to win it. There's no question it's a TV product. And I think that as Australians, we are heavily conditioned to when we can watch sports and when we should watch sports. And the NBL is committed to changing that. Like, they're not just going to do things for 1 year. So they bought into the idea that on Wednesday night, when you knock off work, you know that there's hoops to watch. And maybe you can't get to the game. I don't think the attendance really matters, but you can turn on ESPN Disney Plus and you can watch hoops. I think that's a good thing. They should continue to lean into that and buy into that. That is great. I didn't like the fact that this stretched over 3 months of the season, because I personally found it very hard to track. I found it very hard to build momentum for this tournament and figure out what it means and who are the teams that are there. Sure, you can look at the standings, but when Southeast Melbourne hadn't even played a game and New Zealand had played 3, it made no sense. I also think for a team like Adelaide, I know they wanted to win this game, but they got bigger fish to fry in a week's time. I think that this tournament would be awesome if you condense it early in the season. Everyone's healthy. There's no chance of players leaving. Have it all together so it's easier to track, and have the final before the new year. And then we know once we get to the new year, we're on the road to the real playoffs.
You reckon similar to what the first NBL Cup was with the COVID one?
It doesn't have to be all together, but just have it over 1 month rather than 4 months, because I didn't really feel like there was any momentum gathered by Ignite Cup. It's like you turn on Wednesday, it's like, okay, it's Ignite Cup. And you're like, I don't know what the standings are. I don't know when my team last played in this. What does this actually mean? We care about money in February when we first played in October. I just think condense it more and people will buy into the idea of going on a ride for a month with their team.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that, actually. And I wonder if you can sort of leverage like a Hoops Fest, for example, and have that be the sort of the culmination, and maybe have like a semifinals and a finals, where I think of like the Final Four, where you can have your semis, the finals, and then sort of everyone knows why they're there. That's what everyone's playing for that thing. I don't disagree with that because again, I feel like even some teams will play 3 Wednesday night games in the first couple rounds of the season, then won't have another one until the end. But then they're in the top spot. But then the Phoenix hadn't played. I think they might have played like one Ignite Cup game going into like round 10 or so. So it's hard to keep up with a tournament if you can't keep up with the tournament, right?
Yeah.
So I appreciate that too. I wouldn't be against that, to be honest.
Now here's the other one I've got. The other change I would make, and this is something for me across all sports, outside of like the NCAA Final Four, I hate neutral venues. Now, I think if you want to build the momentum again, do it condensed. The fans know, okay, we're in this together. We're trying to win this in-season tournament. And if you're a fan of the New Zealand Breakers, I actually just did New Zealand radio, and they told me that the Gold Coast is technically the 4th biggest city in New Zealand because there are so many Kiwis that live on the Gold Coast. So maybe it worked out for them. But there was a part of me when I was watching this where you had the neutral court announcer. Obviously, Eric does he's best in the business from the Sydney Kings, but he's a neutral. We understand that. There's no parochial crowd. It wasn't. They said it was a sellout. Didn't look full to me on TV. I thought for New Zealand, if you are on the top of these standings, you should have the chance to watch your team. You've been through it for the whole entire ride over the regular season. I just think just have it at a home venue. I know there might be challenges with booking venues because it's going to be last second and all those types of things. I just think the neutral venue, it was a high quality standard of basketball, no doubt. But it still just did feel a little exhibition-y with there was no hostility. And I think there should be hostility when you're playing for a title of any description. So I get why they did it. I don't like neutral site games.
You got anything else to complain about? I thought it was great. Great game.
Great game. It was a great game. And I love the Ignite Cup. Just a couple of small tweaks, Food for thought.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think all in all, strip everything back, I thought it was largely a success. So I think continue with the concept, obviously. Some of these tweaks I think are warranted. Some of them not. I don't know if I care about. I like the idea of a neutral site. I don't know if it works for like for Hoops Fest. It's sort of hit or miss for me. The neutral site, but for a game like this, it gives you a good sense of. I think treat it like almost like a blitz, where you can get a sense if this region is ready for a team. How much do they like basketball? Seemed like the Gold Coast showed out broadly. I thought it was cool, and it's sort of both of the teams out there. They get their chance to like prove that they're the one that this crowd should be cheering for, and I think the Breakers like clearly won that.
The underdog factor, man. You always got to root for the underdog. They got it done. Shout out to the NBL for trying. As I said, they're trying to just teach the audience about a Wednesday night sports. They continue to innovate, and they've admitted themselves. CEO David Stevenson was on Nothing But Net, and he said, yeah, there will be tweaks next year, but we like it, and we're going to stick with it. So let us know in the comments what you thought of the Ignite Cup, and of course, everything related to the MVP debate as well. I'll be back on YouTube this week, so jump in the YouTube comments there. I was going to ask you about Adelaide, but let's just get to FIBA basketball. We have got Miguel standing by. The Boomers and Philippines this Sunday night. Here's a reminder of what went down back in 2018.
Goorj and Golden, well, they got to calm these two down. This is getting out of control. They need to calm this situation down. Oh, my Lord. These are ugly, ugly scenes right now. You won't believe what's going on. This is getting out of control. They need to clear the benches, get them out of here. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is a side to basketball that we don't want to see, but this all stems from the fact that Goorj was antagonizing Golden. And this is why the officials need to act early, but really, security needs to get in and break this apart.
Look, I don't know if anyone really needed to be reminded of what went down in July 2018, but that was the massive brawl between the Boomers and the Philippines. The last time they were playing in a World Cup qualifier in the Philippines, they're going to do so again this weekend. So we thought, Olgun, what better time to bring in our friend Miguel Caramoan from ESPN Philippines. It's so good to see you, mate. Thanks for giving us some time.
Hi, Kane. Hi, Olga. Nice to meet you and excited to talk hoops.
Yeah, we want to learn more about this Philippines team, but let's just cut to the chase, Miguel. This is the number one question that probably everyone is curious about. What are we suspecting the reception is going to be for this Boomers team as they come back to the Philippines for the first time since that really ugly vision we just saw?
I think both nations have moved on from that brawl. They have worked together to patch a great relationship with each other. So I don't think it's gonna be an issue, a safety issue for Australia to return here in the Philippines and play basketball. I think Basketball Australia and SBP have coordinated well. They might do some pre-game activations just to show the relationship now of both Philippines and Australia. So if Australian fans have some qualms, they don't have to worry. I think it's all good right now.
That's good, Ogs.
Miguel, yeah, it's great. And Miguel, I spoke with some people at Basketball Australia, and they sort of gave me the rundown that there are going to be different activations. I think they're going to get the under 19 Gilas team to go and watch a Boomers practice, maybe do a jersey swap with John Reilly and the head coach of the Filipino team. Do you feel like that sort of outreach from both nations? Do you think that's been well received? And do you feel like both nations are ready? The way that Basketball Australia put it to me was, we want to be friendly but competitive. Do you think both nations are ready for that?
I think that would be the perfect phrase to describe how both teams will approach it. I think it's friendly because we know what happened before, but of course the competitive fire of trying to get to the World Cup is still there. Both teams, I think, are 2-0 in the first window, so it's gonna be a dispute for the number one seed heading into the second round, maybe. So I think that you need that competitive fire to really have a great game.
Yeah, but that's the exact point, right? And I love that you brought that up, Miguel, that these two teams, we want them to be competitive. They played recently in the Asia Cup. And if there is some competitive tension between these two teams, and that's awesome. It's basketball. That's what you want. What we don't want is what we saw with the emotion spilling over and then the crowd getting involved. But overall, you pointed to it, Miguel. It's great and Olgs that it seems like the relationship has somewhat strengthened out of that incident that happened around 8 years ago now, because I think for the most part, I don't speak for everyone, Olgs, but the passion and the love for basketball in the Philippines is what makes everyone love the region and how much they love the game. So it should be a positive thing. And hey, if there's a little push and shove in the game, that's totally fine as well. This is a very serious game of basketball that we've got with stakes on the line, Miguel. So I want to ask you, the Philippines, as you pointed to, 2-0, they played Guam. The Boomers will play Guam first, but now things really do ramp up for the Philippines here with New Zealand and then Australia. So what is the state and the strength of this Philippines roster we're going to see?
It's somehow the same from the FIBA Asia Cup roster that they had paraded in Saudi Arabia in 2025. They added some new players to the pool, but I'm not quite sure yet if they're gonna be part of the final 12. It's Quentin Miliora Brown, the big man from UP College here, so he's gonna participate in the coming window. They've also added Justin Baltazar and Juan Gomez de Liano, who have previously played for the Philippines in the Olympic qualifying tournament in 2021. So it's practically the same system with Coach Tim Cone. He's somehow rigid with the system, so expect the same stuff that they ran in the Asia Cup to be ran still here in the second window. So it's going to be a challenge for the Philippines since you've mentioned that they've gone past through Guam. So the next challenge is to beat their Oceania rivals, New Zealand and Australia. And the catch is it's gonna be a tough qualification for the Philippines to the World Cup since after this round they're gonna go to the second round and obviously try to make top three to make its fourth consecutive World Cup appearance. But the tough draw of having Australia and New Zealand makes it like a road tougher for them.
And Miguel, it's you mentioned QMB. He's like an important addition to this Filipino team because Boomers are coming in with Nick Kay, two-time Olympian, Sam Froling, Jack White, Mitch Creek. So there's a lot of front court depth. Do you think that so the Boomers have front court depth? Some would question the backcourt depth of this Boomers team. I think it's quite inexperienced. Do you feel like the backcourt depth of that Filipino team? Do you think that's the strength of what the Philippines are going to bring to the table against a Boomers backcourt that I think is just a little bit unseasoned right now.
That has to be their strength because the big men issue right now is they don't have Kai Soto. Although they still have QMB, AJ Edu, Junmar Fajardo, they'll need output from their guards, specifically from Scotty Thompson, Chris Newsom, and maybe if RJ Abarrientos and Juan Gomez de Liano gets added to the pool, that's what they need to stabilize their offense. It's right now too much Justin Brownlee. If you've watched the Asia Cup, they needed heroic performance from Justin Brownlee just to make the quarterfinals. In the Guam games, when Guam creeped up to them in the second half, they needed a Justin Brownlee burst to just have enough offense to win that game, to win those games. So if they want to keep it close against Australia, I know no Asian team has beaten Australia since 2017, since joining FIBA Asia tournament. So if they intend to really keep up with Australia and once again beat New Zealand like they did in 2024, they'll need their guards to like have great shooting nights, especially in this window.
Yeah, Brownlee, Olgs, we've discussed him before in the past when the Boomers have played the Philippines. He's become one of those FIBA stars for this team, and he is certainly has been the leading scorer. I got one more for you before we let you go, Miguel. Now, Kai Soto, basketball fans in Australia, NBL fans, very familiar with this very tall, very young man. And I did mention to you before we started recording, back in the day when he was playing for the Adelaide 36ers, when we talk about the passion of the Filipino basketball fans, Olgs, if you wanted a few extra downloads and a few extra views on your podcast, talk about Kai Soto. So please give us an update on what he's been up to since leaving the NBL. And I know you mentioned he's probably not going to be a part of this window, why that might be the case.
Yeah, his camp confirmed that to me the past week that Kai Soto will not be playing in this window because he's still recovering from his ACL injury. Although he has suited up already for his B-League team, the Koshigai Alphas, he will still be sidelined for this window, and I think he'll be available for the road games in July, the third window against New Zealand and Australia. So it's a big loss. Because when the Philippines defeated New Zealand in the 2024 Asia Cup qualifiers, I think he arguably played his best performance in a Gilas uniform. I think he almost had a triple-double and like introduced himself as like he's now the main big of the Philippines, and like I said earlier, might be the best local in the Philippines. So it's unfortunate that he's not there, but I did not see this vision that I would say the Philippines will still have enough bigs in QMB 6'11", Junmar Fajardo 6'10", AJ Edu still there 6'11", Carl Tamayo 6'8". So the luxury of the Philippines of having big men is quite up there now, unlike the past iterations of this team. So even without Kai, they still have enough bigs to compete against the physical players or physical gifted players from New Zealand and Australia.
Yeah, he's got a long career ahead of him, so we look forward to, maybe in that July window, seeing Kai Soto. It'll be fun to see him come against probably a number of guys that he's known from his time in the NBL as well, Olg. So we'll chat about the Boomers in just a little bit. We'll keep it going. But Miguel, we're going to get you back on. As we said, they do play in a couple more months' time. I've got to get out to the Philippines. My colleague Aaron Atide is there right now, and he keeps telling me how beautiful it is. So I can't wait to get out at some point. If you're at the game, enjoy it, man, and thanks for the time.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Miguel.
All right, good stuff from Miguel there, Olga. And it's nice to get a different voice on someone that is an expert in what's going down with the Philippines there. We look forward to both these games, of course. So the Boomers have to play Guam first, then they'll go across to the Philippines. What did you make of this squad? What were some of the takeaways as Basketball Australia dropped this? Always a different version of the Boomers for these qualifiers in the FIBA window?
Yeah, the first name that stood out was Mitch Creek. Has not been part of the Boomers since the 2019 World Cup. So that was the last team he played for. He was part of the squad ahead of the Tokyo Olympics, but hasn't been part of the program since. So it's been a long time since Creek has been a part of it. He is a member of this squad. It's very front court heavy. I think that's where like the bulk of the experience and talent is between Mitch Creek, Sam Froling, Nick Kay, Jack White. These are really proven guys. And then it gets less experienced when it comes to the guards, like I spoke about with Miguel. You think of who even starts at the point for this team. It was a struggle to get players because of the timing of it and things like that. So you have Elijah Pepper, you have Isaac White, you have Tom Wilson in the fray, that you have your Rain Smith. So no traditional point guard, no guy that we know as someone who's like a table setter. So I'm intrigued to see what John really does with this group, and whose hands is the ball going to be in. That's an intriguing one, because there's usually that guy, like a Mitch McCarron type, a Mitch Norton type. I don't think that exists on this roster. So who does John really lean into? I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting. Obviously, a couple of guys that maybe could have been in the mix, sticking with their teams for the NBL run. Obviously, Dash Daniels, we've seen a couple of times now for the Boomers. Of DJ Vasiljevic actually did say that he wanted to play, and then it didn't work out there. And I think he's getting ready for this playoff run with Adelaide. We'll probably see a lot of Mitch Creek handling the ball, right? I mean, he did do that a lot with the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix. He might be that point forward type guy for this team. And as you pointed to, I think that they're going to have the bodies, the size, the length, certainly in the big man department, with a bunch of guys that are experienced. I thought it was cool to see Sam Froling, Olgs, because he's come back this year, obviously, after the Achilles. Incredible timing on that comeback, and he's just been awesome since he came back for Illawarra. I thought he was really impactful player, even though perhaps it was a little bit difficult of a mix with JaVale McGee. But he only played 15 games, so it's going to be cool to see him hopefully get some opportunities with this team.
Yeah, and like you said, that the Boomers, the four-man carries the ball a lot. They bring the ball up the floor. They start the action. So again, Mitch Creek, Nick Kay, Jack White. These guys do carry the ball a lot anyway, so they should be okay there. A really cool one is Tom Wilson, because
Was that juniors the last time he obviously played?
He was a captain. He was a captain of his under-17 Australian team and under-19 Australian team, and he played for the Boomers one time, the senior team. And I think it might have been a week or two after that when he made the transition to footy. And so he hasn't played for the Boomers in a very long time, since before he switched sports. Now he's back, and some of the people dropping out of this opened the door for him, and he gets to play for John Reilly, who at one point, a very long time ago, Tom Wilson was committed to Boise State with John Reilly as an assistant coach. So John Reilly, over 10 years ago, recruited Tom Wilson to Boise, and now he gets an opportunity to coach him at this FIBA World Cup Asian qualifier. The team just arrived in Guam. They had a practice this morning, so they're right in the thick of things. David Aquera is on this list. He dealt with a plantar fascia issue in the Wildcats last game, so I don't believe he traveled. And I think there's also a concern with some of the guys who played in one of the Asia Cups in Iran not too long ago, who also I don't think can travel to Guam. So there might be a bit of chopping and changing for that first game, and then it's all eyes on the Boomers' first game in Manila since 2018, since the brawl.
If we're being honest, I know it's not the strongest squad, but they do have obviously some really experienced names that we pointed to that have been there. I'd love to see Jack White. I know it's not necessarily in his nature to dominate games, but he's been public about the fact that his goal is on the World Cup and certainly the Olympics. You'd love to see him really dominate this game. He's in his prime. He's one of the great athletes. Hopefully he's able to start. Sometimes he fades into the background. He's better than that. So I'm excited to see that. The Boomers should win both of these games, let's be honest, against Guam and the Philippines, albeit that Philippines game will be really exciting to watch. Of course, you can watch them on ESPN, your home for hoops, and we'll be able to chat about those games once we've seen them go down. Let's chat NBA, and it is time for Statmate Streak Watch. Download Statmate for all your NBA hot stats. Completely free, Olgan. I heard that you nailed that sponsor read last week on the podcast, which is not a surprise to me, Olgs.
I did my best. I took over your hosting duties. It's not that hard.
I heard I got some mail that I was about to be kicked off this podcast, and you're telling it looks like we're getting a wrap here. So, but Dyson Daniels, let's talk about him for Statmate Streak Watch. So, the Atlanta Hawks in a really interesting position, currently in the 9th seed, got a really easy run to the postseason, though. They should be in a position to climb now. They have a bit of stability. And I know that the steal numbers per game aren't quite where they were on that world record pace last year for Dyson, but he's still second in the NBA for total deflections, 237, just 6 behind Cason Wallace from the Thunder, 243. And in total steals, he's still 3rd in the league as well. But that deflection number is really interesting. You don't see it in the box score, Olgan, but he's still doing a lot of disruptive and damaging things on the defensive side of the ball.
And I think Dyson gets a lot of slander, and I think for no reason too. I appreciate that the 3-ball hasn't been there at all this season, but I don't know what people are expecting from the offensive. Were they expecting some ginormous like Luka Doncic type leap? Like he's gonna turn into some crazy first option. I don't think that was ever gonna happen. Again, there are things he can work on, but what he does defensively, that's the reason he got paid, right? He got paid a lot of money, but it's because he's one of the best defenders on the earth, in the universe. So again, I think people have to get off his back, look deeper into these numbers, and recognize that this is one of the best defenders in the league, and this contract is worth it. And I think stop the slander.
No, I think, again, the scoring is something you look at, but facilitation through the roof this season. And as I said, this Hawks team, they've just been between Trae Young, Kristaps Porzingis, it's been all over the place. They're settled now. I think they're in a pretty good spot. I think they can climb the standings a little bit and at least be a moderately dangerous team, potentially in the first round. But download Statmate for all your NBA hot stats completely free. We have come to the end, Olgs, but I'm reliably told by you might have a little nugget. What do you got for us, the people, the Australian hoops fans?
All I'll say is about 2 months ago, remember I reported Will Weaver in advanced talks with the Brisbane Bullets.
It was noted down that not much has happened since.
Not much has happened since. I'll just say, just things are tracking.
Good.
It feels like it is on track to still happen. Things still need to happen. The contract still needs to get signed. They're still back and forth, but I'm told that this is still on track to be a thing. So not saying it's gonna happen, but I'm saying that it remains a possibility, and I'd say probability.
I am honestly so happy to hear that because the Brisbane Bullets fans need something. It was a disaster of a season, and if they could get Will Weaver, as we said at the time, it could be the start of building a program. They need it desperately, so that's a nice update from you. Make sure you check out Olgun's socials, espn.com.au for everything dropping. I know there's going to be some Boomers and Philippines content dropping this week ahead of the FIBA window. As I said, go back and check out that Bryce Cotton story as well there. He speaks so well. He's once again the MVP, a legend of this league, and we're just lucky to watch him. Olgun, I'm lucky to chat with you, man. And maybe you just want to wrap this up so you can go to sleep. But anyway, we appreciate you. It's so good to see you, my friend. And everyone jump in the YouTube comments. Let us know your thoughts on this podcast. Me and Olgun are back for at least this week anyway. Olgun, great to see you, mate.
Good to see you.
All right. That was the ESPN Aussie Hoops Hour podcast. We will be back next week. We'll speak to you then.